About a year ago, or 368 days to be exact, the basketball world came to a halt as news broke that the Dallas Mavericks sent Luka Doncic to the LA Lakers in an inexplicable trade. Not only was this news shocking, but the immediate and justifiable reaction was that this trade was possibly the dumbest trade in NBA history. But only time would tell if it was truly the worst trade we've ever seen. Fast forward 1 year, almost to the day, and turns out the initial reactions were correct. Because the Luka trade wasn't just dumb, it is now definitively the worst trade in NBA history.
Yo, Nico, man, there was a vision, but you can't bet on AD's health.
Today's video is sponsored by DraftKings.
And
Super
if
Bowl
you didn't
60
get
is
Coop in
upon
that
us,
draft,
and
you was
DraftKings
fucked.
is ready to get you in on all the action for the big game. Right now on DraftKings, new customers who bet just that bonus joins use one of the trades to the poor headlines in recent years. After what looked like it was going to be an uneventful week, trades began to pour in from around the league. James Harden to the Cavaliers, Garland to the Clippers, Vucevic to the Celtics, Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Jazz, Jared McCain to the Thunder. And in the midst of a flurry of trades,
Nobody talking about
came
Jared
this
McCain,
dreadful
bro.
transaction.
He basically just
The
got
final
the championship.
chapter in the worst trade in NBA history. After a fairly quick negotiation, Anthony Davis and company were traded to the Washington Wizards in exchange for Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, Malachi Branham, Marvin Bagley, 2 first-round picks, and 3 second-round picks. An exchange that doesn't sound terrible at first glance, but after about a second of coherent thought, the reality sets in that what the Mavericks have managed to do over the last 12 months might just be the most egregious case of mismanagement in the league's history. Because if coughing up Luka for AD in a bag of chips wasn't bad enough, the Mavs doubled down and sent AD packing for next to nothing. Now, Anthony Davis was the bulk of the haul the Mavericks received for Luka last February, meaning that the Mavericks have now essentially traded away franchise icon, perennial MVP candidate, generational player Luka Doncic for this. 2 starting caliber players, 3 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, and expiring contracts. But a lot of these assets either aren't worth much or were simply add-ons throughout these dealings. Max Christie, Chris Middleton, and Marvin Bagley are the only productive players here. The 2026 first-round pick from the Thunder will likely end up as the 30th pick in the draft. The 2030 first-rounder is a Warriors top 20 protected pick 4 years from now, and the second-round picks are just throw-ins. A complete shot in the dark that rarely turn into anything of substance. In fact, the Wizards spoke about their acquisition of AD and said they were, quote, ecstatic, because the outgoing first-round picks have relatively little value. So if we condense this down to the real value of this trade, then we're left with this. The Mavericks traded Luka Doncic for a starter, 2 rotational players, and 1 first-round pick. This is not a bad trade. This is basketball malpractice, reprehensible, a fireable offense. Oh wait, compare what the Mavericks got for Luka Doncic to some of the blockbuster trades we've seen over the last few seasons, and you would be convinced
look at the Sean Marks masterclass right here. Ripped off the Knicks. The Knicks never won a championship with Bridges.
Dallas is actively attempting to be relegated to the G League. 2 years ago, the Nets got 5 first-rounders and a first-round pick swap for Mikal Bridges. In 2022, Rudy Gobert was worth half a roster, 4 first-rounders, and a first-round pick swap. The OKC Thunder built a championship off the back of a singular season of prime Paul George. I'm not sure what universe the Mavericks live in, but apparently it's one where Luka Doncic is worth about as much as Desmond Bane. It's the ultimate buy high, sell low move from the Mavs. Last February, they were under the impression that Anthony Davis was of comparable value to Luka, his all-NBA level defense and offensive versatility potentially being the missing ingredients for what they hoped would lead them to another run to the finals. 12 months later, they saw him as nothing more than an opportunity to clear cap space. Now trading not 1, but 2 all-NBA caliber players in the span of 1 year. In an article detailing the 1-year aftermath of the Luka trade, it was asked, how do the Mavericks move on from the short-lived AD era? Which is a reasonable question. If this article didn't come out 2 days before he was traded, the Mavericks were already moving on from the, quote, AD era while he was still physically on their bench just a year after they traded the soul of their franchise for him. The total value they got out of AD 29 games played out of a possible 81. Only one of those games played with Kyrie Irving. 18 injuries. Yes, you heard that right. 18. And 16 wins. The Mavericks traded Luka Doncic for 16 wins.
Anthony
On
Davis.
dunks and threes, there is a metric called estimated wins that attempts to calculate, you guessed it, how many wins a player helped contribute to their team's total throughout the course of a season.
In 29 games,
total time with the Dallas Mavericks, he contributed exactly 2 wins. In fact, since the initial Luka trade 1 year ago, the total number of estimated wins contributed by every player that Dallas acquired as a result of the Luka trade is 9 wins. In that same time span, Luka Doncic has single-handedly contributed 12.4 wins for the Los Angeles Lakers. Since being dealt away by an overzealous Mavericks front office, Luka has been more valuable for the Lakers than every other asset involved in exchange for him combined. The Luka trade was so bad that what they got in return for him was nothing more than a salary dump just 1 year later. Now, these head-scratching and irrevocably compounding decisions would leave you thinking that the Mavericks were desperate for some inkling of success, irrationally quick to make decisions, and unfamiliar with long-term results, which might be true if they weren't here in the finals just 18 months ago. They know the ingredients for a winning team. They've made great moves in the past. In fact, this was their winning recipe, the roster that got them within 3 wins of a championship just 2 seasons ago. But out of the 12 players from this finals roster, only 4 of them are currently on the Mavericks today. Dallas rolled the dice and traded away a finals team for a potential long shot to go back to the finals. Dallas's one saving grace, the only thing keeping them out of the depths of NBA relevance for the foreseeable future, is of course Cooper Flagg, a player that fell into their lap through no work of their own. A pick they had just a 1.8% chance of winning on the night of the draft lottery, jumping from the 11th spot in the draft to the first pick as a result of the lottery, which, in case you didn't know, is the single largest jump in position any team has ever made in the history of the NBA lottery. If it wasn't for Cooper Flagg, the best players on the court for the Dallas Mavericks organization this season would have been Max Christie and Najee Marshall. Which means that the only thing that prevented the Mavericks from being the worst team in the league with no hope in sight 18 months removed from a finals appearance was pure, incredibly unlikely, unprecedented luck. At least the Mavericks have found another direction for their franchise. For a second there, it almost felt like they made the worst trade in NBA history. As great as Luka is, the Lakers are dealing with their own ups and downs, you know? Luka isn't a perfect player. Anyone could have made the rash decision to trade him away for almost nothing with absolutely no recourse in place. He is, after all, just the 3rd best player in the world. At least the player they traded away wasn't one of the most valuable assets ever traded away in the history of modern basketball.
It's Chris Paul again. Good video as usual. Vivette model. Push me and then just touch me so you can get my satisfaction. Alright, we were doing this movie. Drop near spear.
Hello?
Oh, why am I watching my own video on my stream? Nigga, how long have you been installing Vanguard for, bro? I know I gotta have Mobalytics at least. So I downloaded Mobalytics, but I ain't download League of Legends. Okay. Fantastic. Damn, the fuck? What is this situation going on here? uh, Yo, how many revivals is this nigga Dream gonna have for this speedrunning shit, bro? You can't revive something 500 times. Um, Jonathan Majors, who actually watched Magazine Dreams. What the fuck? Oh, why is this guy playing Valorant in the big 2026? Mm. Let's watch Michael Jordan's career high 69 points.
Michael Jordan is averaging 33 a
Hell
game
no,
against
it's
the league.
17 minutes. You only need 17 minutes to show me 69 points, gang.